The Town of Los Gatos special meeting of the Planning Commission of April 30th, 2025 is now called to order. I will now call the roll. Commissioners, please state here when your name is called. Vice Chair Birch.
Here.
Commissioner Barnett.
Here.
Commissioner Stump.
Here.
Please note that, and I'm here as well, please note that Commissioner Burnett and Commissioner Raspy are absent tonight. If you are able, please stand as I lead everyone in the pledge. Pledge allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As the Planning Commission conducts the meeting this evening, we encourage active participation by the public, which is essential to our work. The public can participate in several ways. Prior to a meeting, written comments about agenda items may be submitted to staff. During the meeting, typically there are two portions, but because tonight this is just a special meeting, there will be an opportunity one time for people to speak on this special agenda item. If you want to address the commission tonight for this agenda item, please fill out a speaker card and submit it to one of the staff members. And when your name is called, you will have 3 minutes to come up, speak into the microphone clearly, and to state your name and address, because this meeting is being recorded for public record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. So we will now move on to our public hearing, starting with item number 1. And I just want to remind everyone tonight that there will not be any decisions or recommendations made tonight or forwarded to Town Council because we are still pending some environmental review. And so there will be another Planning Commission meeting on this agenda item at a future time after after the environmental review has been cleared up and presented to us. So the first item is to consider a request to construct a mixed-use residential development, 450 units, a vesting tentative map, site improvements requiring a grading permit and removal of large protected trees under Senate Bill at 330 on property zoned North 40 specific plan housing element overlay zone located at 14859, 14917, 14925, and 16392 Los Gatos Boulevard, 16250, 16260, and 16270 Burton Road, and assessor parcel number 424-07-116, APNs 424-07-009, 052, 053, 081, 094, 095, 115 and 116. The architecture and site application is S-23-031 and the subdivision application is M-23-005. The property owner is Yuki Farms LLC and the applicant is Grosvenor Properties America, Steve Buster, and the project planner is Ms. Shootman. Before the staff report, may I have a show of hands from commissioners who have visited the properties? And are there any disclosures? Okay. Ms. Shootman, thank you.
Thank you and good evening. The applicant is requesting approval to construct a mixed-use residential development with a total of 450 units, 77 of which would be designated as affordable. The application is being processed under Senate Bill 330 and the project qualifies for 2 concessions and unlimited waivers under state density bonus law. The 15.565 acre site is proposed to be developed with a mixed-use residential building with approximately 7,874 square feet of commercial space on the ground floor, along with 255 apartments, 10 of which would be designated for lower income households. A 100% affordable housing building consisting of 67 rental apartments for lower income households, along with 1 unit for an on-site manager, 127 townhomes distributed amongst 17 buildings, 2 commercial buildings totaling approximately 7,200 square feet, and approximately 3.5 acres of publicly accessible open space that is spread throughout the project site. The majority of the accessible open space is located within the meadow, a centralized space that contains an outdoor pavilion, a pedestrian path, active recreation uses, including a garden, amphitheater, and play space. As described in greater detail in the staff report, the townhome buildings are proposed at 3 stories, ranging in height from 44 feet 3 inches to 48 feet 9 inches. The 100% affordable housing building is proposed at 5 stories with a maximum height of 62 feet 5 inches, and the mixed-use building is proposed at 7 stories with a maximum height of 99 feet 8 inches. The 2 commercial buildings are proposed to be 1 story, ranging in height from 25 to 27 feet. The applicant has implemented the parking requirements provided through state density bonus law for the mixed-use building and the townhomes, which require a total of 605 spaces to be provided. The project includes 768 spaces within the mixed-use building parking garage, street parking, a surface parking lot, and private garages. The applicant has requested 2 concessions through state density bonus law. The first concession, is to allow for residential uses on the ground floor of buildings, as currently the North 40 specific plan prohibits residential uses on the ground floor in the Northern District. The second concession is to allow the applicant the ability to remove the proposed private roof decks for the townhome buildings at the time of building permit submittal, if necessary to reduce construction costs, which would cause the project to fall short of the objective design standard requirement for private recreation space. A number of waivers are also requested, as detailed in Exhibit 2, for building height and several objective design standards. An addendum and desk item have been distributed with additional public comments, correspondence from the applicant, and updated parking information regarding state density bonus law. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission consider the request, take public comment, discuss the project, and continue the matter to a date uncertain. A future Planning Commission meeting will be scheduled to discuss the environmental analysis for the project and to make a recommendation to the Town Council. This concludes my presentation. However, staff is available to support your discussion tonight.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff at this time? Commissioner Stump.
Earlier this afternoon, we received an email from the Los Gatos Community Alliance, and we received that as a desk item. And so I'm just wondering, has staff had a chance to review this email?
Thank you, Commissioner. We have read the letter, the statements in there. We will, as they suggest, look for advice first, actually, from legal counsel. So since Ms. Wayland is out, we will be seeking that clarification. Okay. We have had conversations on that in the past. And I'm going to take this time to introduce Nazanin Salehi. She's from Goldfarb and Lippman, and so she's sitting in Ms. Wayland's absence.
So I guess there's no point in asking any further questions on this.
You can ask the question. We will defer the answer.
I guess one of my key questions was, do we consider this to be an accurate statement that it lacked that the town's housing element lacked certification on April 18th? So I will hold until we have Ms. Whelan back. Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Oh, yes, Commissioner Stump.
I wanted to talk just a little bit about the affordable housing.
I'm sorry, this is just the questions for staff at this time?
Yes.
Oh, questions for staff, okay.
And the affordable housing portion of the report. I guess what I'd like to ask you just to state again, how many units of affordable housing are being developed by the applicant in North 40 Phase 2?
There are 77 units that are being proposed.
If we look back at our sites inventory in our housing element, do you know how many affordable housing units that we had planned for that property?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I can certainly look it up and report back to the commission.
I've been doing some research on this because I think it's really important to look at this. That number was actually 364 for Phase 2 of the North 40 project. And what is actually happening is that 77 are being developed. What we've seen over the past several years is that numbers have been provided to us, like in September of 2022. The thought was that up to, or maybe even more than 130 units could be provided. Then in September of 2023, that was reduced to 91 affordable units. And now, as of March 2025, it's being reduced further to 77 affordable units. I know we do not have RENA or no net loss analysis tonight. But as we look at that trajectory of fewer and fewer affordable housing units being built, what kind of predicament does this put the town in, potentially?
Thank you, Commissioner Stump. So I'll make a just overarching statement that the reality of any of the sites in the sites inventory being developed to the level of affordability in the sites inventory is, if not zero, as close as you can possibly be. So obviously, as you're aware, if the town gets into a situation where we no longer have the capacity to meet our regional housing needs allocation, we will fall under no net loss law, which will require the town to rezone an additional site to make up that capacity, site or sites, depending on the extent of that, to refill that bucket so that we're still compliant with housing element law.
And I guess just a comeback question on that would be, since we had 364 units, affordable housing units in our plan, did we consider that number to be realistic?
Realistic from a planning housing element exercise?
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
That's the way you'd have to answer it. Sure.
Yeah, yes.
Sure.
So, I mean, technically, once you hit the minimum density for the specific jurisdiction, in our case, it's a minimum of 30 dwelling units per acre. The state actually allows you to presume that all of those units will be affordable in the housing element process. Yeah. But the state doesn't provide any opportunities for jurisdictions to compel projects to come forward in those exact or even remotely similar fashion.
And I guess just to help people understand, if we were to carry this out to where Los Gatos is, it's clear that we're ultimately not able to meet these numbers. What do we face in the way of penalties from the state?
Well, I want to get into the penalties. Again, I think that, has a wide range. I'm not sure if Ms. Salehi is interested in providing any, brief
Sure.
injection, but we'll definitely make sure that we come back with more specifics as it moves forward.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Burnett.
I think I know the answer to this, but we have letters submitted by 5 nonprofits indicating that 16 units will be dedicated to intellectually or developmentally disabled persons, and I did not see that in the application. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, so it's been brought to staff's attention that those units are likely to be within the 100% affordable housing building, but I believe Eden Housing is available, or the applicant is available and can speak to that further tonight.
Do that, thank you.
Any other questions for staff at this time? Okay. We will now open the public portion of the public hearing on item number 1 and give the applicant an opportunity to address the commission for up to 5 minutes. So I believe, Mr. Buster, you will be speaking on behalf of the applicant tonight. Thank you. You will have 5 minutes to start. Thank you.
Do you have the presentation? Great. So I'll just point at you and great. Okay, good evening, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Steve Buster. I'm Senior Vice President of Development for Grosvenor. We're excited to be here tonight to present the North 40 Phase 2 project. Slide, please. I'd like to start with a brief project history, touch on the town's housing element and how it shaped the project design. And I'll briefly touch on some of the key components of the program, introduce the project team members, and then we'll be available for any questions. Next slide, please. So the North 40 is located at the very north end of town at the intersection of Highway 17 and 85. Planning for the site began in the 90s. Grosvenor started their involvement in 2008. By 2015, the North 40 specific plan, EIR, and general plan update were approved, and the application for phase 1 was ultimately approved in 2017. Summerhill started construction after the phase 1 approval. In 2021, we turned our attention to phase 2 and immediately began an extensive community engagement process. By January 2023, the town's housing element and CEQA analysis were adopted, redesignating the site to 30 dwelling units an acre. We submitted an application in April 2023, and it was deemed complete 1 year later in April 2024. Finally, in July 2024, the HCD certified the town's housing element. Next slide, please. As a reminder, the town's RENA requirement is 1,993 units, and the town looks to our site to accommodate a significant portion of those units by redesignating the site to 30 dwelling units an acre. Grosvenor did say at the time that we could only commit to 200 units, but ultimately the housing element was approved at the 30 units per acre. So we went to work to design a project that met your needs, consistent with your housing element, and we've done that, and we're proud of it. Two important points I'd like to mention. One is the project's impacts are within the scope of the 2040 EIR, general plan EIR, which the town relied upon when adopting the housing element. And two, Grosvenor is not invoking builder's remedy. This application meets the town's land use and density approved in the housing element. Next slide, please. Just to briefly touch on the development program. We spent a considerable amount of time master planning the site to provide over 8 acres of open space, a retail promenade, pedestrian bike connections, and 450 homes, which I'll touch on in a bit. Next slide, please. This slide shows the very important integration between phase 1 and the future phase 2. Next slide. Here we illustrate the project's connectivity, including bicycle and pedestrian connections, implementation of the multi-use path. And it's important to note we voluntarily agreed to provide easements and a land dedication for a future extension of Burton Road if the town wanted to do that in the future. You can also see on this slide the central open space, which we call the meadow. Next slide, please. The central meadow is the cornerstone of this plan. It provides an open space, gathering place for the community, and was a very, very important point of emphasis during our community outreach meetings. Next slide. Lastly, this is a rendering of the public promenade, which provides a connection from Los Gatos Boulevard to the retail, to the meadow, and phase 1 retail. Next slide. So again, the project provides 77 units of affordable housing, 67 of which will be built by our partner Eden Housing. Grosvenor is making a significant land donation to Eden to make that project possible. Next slide. The Eden building will provide a mix of a mix of unit types available for lower income households. Next slide. We've master planned 127 townhomes. Again, with a mix of sizes and bedroom counts to provide a wide variety of housing. Next slide. And lastly, 255 units, including 10 affordable, will be delivered in the multifamily rental building, also designed with a wide variety of sizes and unit types to attract a range of renters. Next slide. That building was designed and placed along, I'm almost done here, along Los Gatos Boulevard to preserve hillside views from Highway 17. Do you want me to finish up?
We'll have, you'll have an additional 3 minutes in a little bit.
I'm
and
done.
we also have some, we will have questions for you.
Okay.
So
Thank you very much.
You can pull up any of your slides to answer any questions. So
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, do any commissioners have questions for the applicant? I think, yes. Sorry, you're not done yet. Commissioner Stump.
Again, I wanted to come back to affordable housing and this agreement that you have, or a partnership you have with Eden House. Could you explain that a little bit more? How development would proceed, and would that development be concurrent with the main, I guess the Grosvenor part of the project?
Yeah, Eden Housing is a wonderful partner. If you remember, they developed the affordable housing project Walnut Grove next door in phase 1, which was very well received. I can invite them up here to speak about the project, but Grosvenor's obligation would be to donate the land and complete all of the infrastructure around the site, enabling them to go get their own financing and build that project.
Oh, good evening. Thank you. My name is Dixie Baus. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development for Eden Housing. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy to take your questions on that. We are, in fact, very grateful for the opportunity to build another phase of affordable housing for families who want to live in Los Gatos, and offering a range of 1, 2, 3 bedroom apartments for those families who want to call Los Gatos home.
Follow-up question. Again, how does this arrange? I don't need to know the business details, but I'm trying to understand, what is the commitment? We have 77 affordable housing units are identified in this project. We need to make sure that all 77 are developed and something doesn't happen where it ends up, kind of too bad, so sad, there was a problem and we couldn't build those units. So I guess I'm looking for an assurance at this point in time that those units will be built and that they would likely be built concurrently with the overall project.
Because of the unique way that affordable housing, 100% affordable housing is financed, that's really too difficult to predict at this time. But Eden has definitely have a very long history of working with many, many market rate apartment and for sale developers. And just in the last 5 years, we've completed 7 such projects under this same similar scenario where land was dedicated, the land was prepped, infrastructure was built by the master developer, and that all counted to help us raise dollars for the affordable housing. You see, our affordable housing will provide rents that are much lower than what's required in the town's affordable housing plan. And so we can reach families with deeper affordability. But in doing that, we do go and we leverage our financing capabilities and get tax credits, which is mostly how all of the affordable housing at such low levels are being built in Santa Clara County and in Los Gatos.
I understand, and we're fully in support of getting those units developed. It's in everybody's best interest to get those units developed. Chair, could I ask one more question about the waiver? A waiver is being requested that allows you to develop the proposed BMP housing that will neither provide affordable units proportionally the same unit type mix as the market rate units, nor have the units be dispersed throughout the property. And I don't know this is a question for you, but why is the affordable housing in your project being clustered this way?
I'll take one portion of that because I do know that this particular building for Eden's affordable housing was always projected as a standalone building, and that's to reach the lower area medium income targets and the rent targets in which we set. Now, the rest of the development has the remainder of the affordable housing units, which will be built at the same time as the other units. Ours is a special, unique financing situation in which the standalone has one 100% building consisting of all units that are 60% and below AMI.
Thank you.
Did that answer the question?
Yeah, like you said, the part that you could answer.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead, and this is probably directed back toward Grosvenor. In the March 6, 2025 letter that was signed by Eric Phillips, it states compliance with the BMP program requirements would physically preclude development of the project. What is about the lot that precludes you from developing in compliance with the BMP program? I understand the partnership, but what keeps you from building across the property?
Good afternoon. I was going to say good afternoon, but it's good evening. Good evening. My name's Eric Phillips. I wrote the letter you just quoted from. Nice to meet you, Planning Commissioner. But the issue with the waiver is that if the project were required to physically distribute units throughout the project, we would not be able to develop the project that we've proposed. In order to meet the needs of the Eden Housing Project, to have that project function as proposed, as part of the unified whole of the development plan, it's necessary to have those physically designed in a single building with the bedroom count, with the unit sizes that the project is proposing. So the project that's proposed could not physically go forward if the town's distribution and proportionality requirements were imposed on the project.
I think I'll probably have more questions, but that answer is fine for now. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Additional, yes, Commissioner Burnett.
Question for you. I understand the waiver with respect to the waiver request with respect to the BMP units being integrated and not dispersed throughout the project. But and maybe this is an unfair question, but do you see any issues regarding the UNRRA Civil Rights Act or the California Fair Housing Act or the Federal Fair Housing Act that are involved in that?
No, so the housing would certainly be developed to comply with all fair housing laws, and it would be offered on a fair housing law compliant basis. It would be universally accessible and marketed to reach a broad swath of the population. I've done quite a bit of fair housing work and analysis on other projects, and we've never had any issue with having an affordable housing project be a component of a market rate project and leading that to exclude any protected classes under fair housing laws. In fact, because of the depth of affordability, we're actually able to serve many protected populations that wouldn't otherwise have housing opportunities in Los Gatos. So I think that the unit sizes and affordability that can be met by this project will help the town achieve its obligation to affirmatively further fair housing.
Thank you. Well, if I may go on with it, I'm not sure who will respond to this, but can you enlighten me some more regarding the 16 units for developmentally or intellectually challenged people?
Yeah, and that we will ask Dixie to come back and talk about Eden's partnership with them. Thank you.
Thank you so much again for the question. Great question. In Eden's 57 years, we have had the luxury, if you will, of partnering with a number of organizations that provide housing opportunities for many people. One of those communities is the intellectually disabled community. The IDD community has been a friend to Eden for many years. We have set aside units to help meet their demand in communities. And there's a huge demand in this community for people who live with their parents currently, but who cannot simply afford to have their own rental unit. And so we're providing that opportunity for those individuals to apply for a home with us and making that opportunity available to them. There's no special needs population, if you will. There's no different way that those units have to be built, if you will. They're built inclusively along with the other apartments in the building, as well as, so it is creating a very cohesive, very inclusive community for rent opportunities for everyone who wants to live in Los Gatos.
May I follow up? So I still don't understand how there's going to be implementation of the 16 units set aside for these people.
Many more oftentimes than not, and for instance, in many affordable housing plans, there are what's called not special set-asides, but preferences that are given for a number of units. And so in some of our units, we have preferences for seniors, which is built in on Phase 1. Phase 1 was 100% preference for 55 and older. And then there were sub-preferences for people who may have lived previously in the town of Los Gatos or maybe even worked. So it really is dependent upon what is in the negotiated development agreement. And in this particular instance, While we don't have a specific agreement with Housing Solutions, we do have a very long history of working together and definitely do want to provide that opportunity. The exact number of units we'll have to work out as we go along, but right now it seemed like they needed about 25% out of the total, and so that's the starting number that we come up with. It could be more, it could certainly be less. I'm betting they think it's more. I know they'll want more. They certainly have the need in this community to provide affordable housing for the IDD community.
Thank you for that.
I have one follow-up question for you about that. Is when actually building these units, and is that when you take into account the population that you're targeting for the use, like in the design and the living space itself, or is it more about after they're built, the outreach and the programs that you coordinate with to get the highest need individuals into them?
Typically, we do it very early in the game because when we look at a specific piece of property, we want to say, hey, would this population work well with the master population? So, for example, you have some challenges when you mix the population of family and senior. There's some fair housing challenges that you have to work out there. But not when you mix populations with, say, veterans and families, or IDD community and families, or even formerly homeless, because we do that as well. So there are many subsets of populations that mix as well in a community and in a development. In this particular development, the IDD subpopulation really, really blends quite well with large family.
Thank you. And then Vice Chair Birch, and then, yeah.
A bit of a different topic, so this is more directed towards Mr. Buster, please. During your presentation, you made a note that you obviously had spent a lot of time on developing the site. And so I'd like to understand the thought process behind putting the tallest building right on the boulevard where, if you recall, during phase one, there was a lot of talk about being very deliberate in placing the tallest building closer to the highway to keep the view corridor along the boulevard and some things like that. So phase two seems to have kind of done a swap. So I'd like you to walk me through what that planning was and the logic.
Sure. Can you go back to my slide deck? Okay, so there's several reasons why we place the building where it is. First, it does preserve the hillside views from Highway 17, which is also a big point of emphasis during phase one. Number two is there's a drop in grade that's significant from Los Gatos Boulevard down onto the site. And so it takes advantage of that drop in grade by, it essentially makes the height, the feel of the height from Los Gatos Boulevard lower. And the third reason was there's retail provided along the promenade that's at the ground floor of the multifamily building. And that is the area in that Los Gatos Boulevard corridor where the retail will be most successful and activated. So those are three reasons why we placed it where it is.
So I don't have to dig through the civil drawings. What's the grade drop from the boulevard down?
I'm going to look at my civil engineer here and see if she knows. 6 feet. It's 6 feet, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Stump?
A question about density. These lots that make up the North 40 Phase 2 were scheduled to produce a minimum of 464 housing units, according to our housing element, the plan, and you're producing 450 housing units. My question would be, why aren't you producing housing units that meet the minimum allowable density?
Well, so the minimum density that applies to the site is 30 dwelling units per acre, and that is the density that the project is being developed at. The density calculations exclude some of the streets and areas that are being dedicated to the town, and look at the developable area and the town's definition of density, the project is being developed slightly higher than 30 dwelling units per acre.
I guess this would be an area of one of my concerns. You know, numbers have meaning and calculations have meaning as well. In our housing element plan, the definition for density is on page C75. And it's, that may be wrong, there might be D75. It says residential developments are regulated by an allowed density range, minimum and maximum, measured in dwelling units per acre. Residential density is calculated by dividing the number of housing units on the site, excluding accessory units, by the gross lot area. And so the only point I would make is perhaps if this is a difference of opinion, and I'm just all about getting things right, maybe we should look to HCD for some technical advice on the density calculation, because they obviously have approved this. They're expecting us to do apples to apples comparisons, and this may not be a true apples to apples to comparison with other projects that might come before us.
Well, yeah, I think that the calculations are entirely consistent with the town's definitions, both in its general plan, in its municipal code, and in the way that it applied density to the first phase of the project. So it has both a pattern and practice of calculating density in this way. And we are developing 30 dwelling units per acre of the developable site. The only exclusions are for things that will function as public roadways. The internal network of streets are all included, so that it is the equivalent of a gross density.
Yeah, and I understand, and I guess where I'm coming from is, how does HCD, how do they interpret that? I mean, I realized, and I've talked to our staff about this as well and gotten a similar explanation. So there's nothing out of line here, but it's just details matter, and this is a detail. So like I say, that's just a concern that I have, and that's really, I have no further question on that, though.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, but thank you. And I'm not in a position to speak for HCD. I won't put words in their mouth, but we definitely think that the project meets the town standards and is consistent with their approach to calculating the numbers.
Any other? Oh, yes, Commissioner Burnett.
For the appropriate person, it might be you. You mentioned, or it was mentioned, that there would be an easement dedicated related to Burton, is it Avenue, or Burton Avenue? But public access needs to be assured for the meadow. As I understand, that's a public use right, so I assume there'll be a dedication.
Yeah, so the one part that was featured in the presentation was a dedication that goes above and beyond the impacts that the project have been identified. So in some ways, it's an additional dedication that's being made to help facilitate the town's long-term transportation goals. But even though that was featured in the presentation, that certainly is not the only dedication that's going to be made as part of the project. The streets will have easements, permanent easements over them so public can access them, and there will be certainly accessible routes to use the project amenities.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all for answering all those questions. We now invite comments from members of the public. So if you have not already turned in a speaker card to staff, please do so at this time, or use the raise hand feature if you are on Zoom and would like to speak. When you're called to speak, please state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to make your public comments. The first speaker card I have is for Gia Pham. Thank you. And just to let everyone know, the microphone, you can take it off or you can move it and adjust as needed. So thank you.
Hi there, my name is Gia and I'm the communications coordinator at Housing Choices. We are a nonprofit that helps people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, or IDD, find and retain housing. I'm here to express support for the North 40 Phase 2 project and, more importantly, speak on behalf of the families and individuals with IDD who are part of this community and want to stay part of this community. In the past few months, I had the privilege to speak with several families in Los Gatos who have children with developmental disabilities. They shared how heartbreaking it is to know that when their kids grow up, they most likely won't be able to afford to live in the town that they grew up in. One parent told me, "We love it here, but I don't see how my daughter could ever live here on her own." At the Los Gatos Saratoga Union High School District, I spoke with the superintendent for special needs, and he said that the post-secondary program currently serves 30 students with IDD. Each year, 3 to 5 of these students age out of their program at 22 years old. Most continue living with their parents and would qualify for the affordable housing units proposed in this project. Additionally, the high school program currently supports 20 families with students who, in just a few years, will be adults ready to take their next step. These families live right here in Los Gatos, and yet when their children reach adulthood, there's no independent living options available for them. These families, like all others, want their kids to have stable, independent futures close to the people, families, and services that support them. This project includes about 16 homes set aside for people with IDD, and it just provides more than just housing. It integrates these residents into the broader community with walkability, green spaces, gathering spaces, and just places to connect. Yes, it is all part of that one affordable housing building, but that's better than no housing at all. And it's also still integrated in the entire plan. Without affordable options like this, many face homelessness, okay? And also many face being displaced out of Los Gatos as their caregivers age. At Housing Choices, we serve over 100 clients with ties to Los Gatos, many who are living here on just $12,000 a year from SSI, while the area median income, as most of us know, is above $120,000 a year. So this is a massive gap. And without projects like North 40 Phase 2, the housing crisis will keep leaving those with disabilities behind. Fair housing laws outline that individuals with disabilities have the right to choose their own housing and not be forced into institutions. But without actual housing opportunities to support this right, the law fails in practice. North 40 Phase 2 brings us closer to honoring fair housing commitments. And I believe in the good faith of Los Gatos Planning Commission to hopefully help move this project forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Real quickly before you leave, I think that Commissioner Barnett has a question for you. Yes.
If you would, please.
Thank you.
This may be a little off topic, but can you bring out some of the services that are available for disabled people who may need assistance?
Yeah, so we provide housing coordination services for anybody associated with the San Andreas Regional Center, which is the hub that supports those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And we also provide on-site resident support services for the folks who end up in those set-aside units.
Very much appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other questions for the speaker? Thank you. The next speaker card I have is for Blake Thomas.
Hello, good evening. My name is Blake. I'm at 16210 Escobar Avenue, and I've been a proud Los Gatos resident my entire life. In fact, I remember hearing about this project when I was just 13 years old, and I'm surprised that we're still talking about it almost a decade later. Tonight, I'm speaking in strong support of this development for 3 key reasons. First, it provides hundreds of desperately needed homes. Second, it creates no unique issues of traffic or safety. And third, it strengthens, not diminishes, the unique character of our town. First point, it provides seriously needed homes. It cannot be stated enough that we are in a housing crisis. Housing costs are eating up people's income, forcing people to commute long distances, and even putting thousands on the street. Our inability to build new homes is the chief cause of these issues, as years of reports and studies have shown. Denser multifamily developments like these not only ease affordability, but also play a vital role in funding town services. It's well established that denser developments produce the most tax revenue for the lowest burden on public services, and this development will thus carry more than its own weight in terms of funding our schools, roads, and parks. My second point is that this development creates no unique issues of traffic or safety. Traffic and road safety have been problems in this town as long as I've been alive, and they will likely still be regardless of how this, if this development is built. But this development will, however, provide key tax revenue for funding pedestrian infrastructure, bike infrastructure, and transit infrastructure that are the true solutions to traffic and road safety. And my third, final, and most important point is that this development actually strengthens our town's unique character. When I think what makes Los Gatos so great, I think about our thriving downtown businesses and the excellent events that we have every year, at which I've made so many fond memories. These are what make Los Gatos stand out from other sleepy, drab suburbs that are so common in this country. And this development provides the fuel for continuing our thriving and vibrant town. This project will provide our town with more patrons of local businesses, more volunteers to run town events, and more engaged community members who are invested in our town's success. Opposing new housing will choke our town of new resources, ideas, and community members. And I want to remind everybody that our town's greatness isn't measured by the height of its buildings, but the vitality of its community. And that's why I urge a support of this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? No. Thank you. Thank you so much for your comments. Next up, I have Catherine Mancuso.
Hello, good evening. Catherine Mancuso. My address is 14287 Mulberry Drive, Los Gatos. My parents moved to Los Gatos in the early 50s, so I was really lucky to be able to grow up here, go to school here, and thankfully have a career that allowed me to buy a house in Los Gatos. I have a son. Sorry, when I talk about my son, I get emotional, but I have a son who's 28 years old, and he has intellectual disabilities. He's been very fortunate in that through housing choices, he's actually been able to move out and lives currently independently. And I can tell you firsthand, like any of us with kids, I think there's some mystery around, developmental disabilities or anyone with some special needs, but it sounds obvious, but to state it, they want the same thing everybody else does. And as parents, we want the same thing that all of us want for our kids, to be able to be productive individuals, to be independent, and to have a place of their own. And the pride and the growth that he's had and experienced, being able to move out, which honestly, we quite frankly never knew if that was going to actually happen. So it's been just fabulous. The downside is it's in Santa Clara. That's the closest place that we could find that, fit the affordability piece, because he qualified through everything that they've been talking about. So being able to be in Los Gatos, I hate that number 16. It should be way larger than that. Because I can't tell you, I know some friends of mine who live in the area sent letters in. My son personally has many friends in the Los Gatos area that also have intellectual disabilities. And so there's a lot of them out there, and they're wonderful. They contribute, they're stable. And just to comment briefly on the having them all in one place, I think I would think that way too, but in actuality, where my son is, I don't know how many units there are. It's on Santa Tomas and Monroe, right on the corner there. It's a new development. He got to move in as the first group of residents that went in there. And through Housing Choices, as Gia mentioned, they have on-site services. They give classes. There ends up being some camaraderie. not always, but a lot of these individuals, my son included, don't drive. So they can, share opportunities for transportation. So there are some goodness that comes out of that kind of community being developed there. So I'm in strong support, and having him be able to live where his doctors are, his dentist is, his friends are, his grandmother is, he could walk to our house from there, would just be fantastic. And so hopefully the more the better. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you so much for sharing tonight. The next speaker will be Jan Olson.
Good evening. I'm Jan Olson. I live at 15189 Lester Lane, directly behind the Office Depot. We've lived in our home for 30 years, over 30 years. In 1994, I was part of a charrette that the town had to find out how the community envisioned Los Gatos Boulevard could be and the look. There were so many great ideas, and they included the North 40. Most of those were for the benefit of the town's population to enjoy. Maximum heights for buildings was set at 35 feet, which came to be, and walkability was a major factor. I was very involved in most of the public discussions of North 40 Phase 1. Sadly, Phase 1 did not become the things that were promised, and in most people's opinions is uglier than F. Certainly not fitting with the look and feel of Los Gatos. I was involved in Phase 2 at the beginning and quickly realized I needed to separate from it, as they were going to do whatever they were going to do. The reason why I'm here today is due to housing choices and the need to have at least 16 units, if not more, designated for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, IDD. My daughter, who is closing in on 36 and lives with me, went through the whole Los Gatos school district system as a special ed student. She was finally diagnosed with autism when she was 17. Back then, there was not such a thing, and whatever it was, girls did not have it. She was one of the first high-functioning students to join the high school's post-secondary program. There were maybe 10 students then. I understand there's over 30 now, which I think is fabulous. She started receiving services from the regional center after she aged out. She was working at Walgreens and with help at first, and ended up being there for 13 years. Due to the services she receives from SARC, which includes independent living skills and special tutoring, she earned her associate's degree in early childhood education from West Valley and is now working full-time as a preschool teacher at Shir Hadash. She loves her job and the kids. This is fabulous. She loves that she can ride her bike to work and stop at the stores on the way home, and she's in her community. She has lived most of her life in Los Gatos. This is home. Designating 16 units for adults with IDD will provide local housing for our kids. Believe me, there's not been anything nearby for them. They live here in their parents' homes, have gone through the school systems here, and work here. Having dedicated housing in Phase 2 will allow these adults to live independently in their family, jobs, and services. It will support stability and community inclusion. By designating these units, it will help Los Gatos meet its housing element goals, avoiding things like builder's remedy. I worry that as I age and eventually need to leave our home, where is she going to live? How will she live? Living across the street on Los Gatos Boulevard in her own space with support will bring both of us great peace of mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the speaker? No. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. The next speaker card I have is for Michelle Caprodi. Apologies if I did not butcher your name, even though you gave me the phonetic
spelling. Very close, Capriati. Thank you for the parents that just recently shared, as I am the mother of a 20-year-old son, so I'm just a little further behind in the journey, and I appreciate you creating the pathway for my child. I stand here before you today as a mother of 4 and a special education teacher of 23 years. Returning to Los Gatos was always a dream. I grew up here. I had my first job here when I was 16 years old, just across the street at the Los Gatos Athletic Club, now commonly known as the Club LG, and even today, I still teach fitness down at Orange Theory in addition to my job as a special education teacher. I am here tonight to speak to you about the need to include all students in our community. While I have not lived in Los Gatos for the past 20 years, my husband and I were so incredibly excited when we were able to purchase our first home this past year. We were priced out of the market as the parents of 4 children when we graduated from college. It took us years to get back here, and we are grateful that now we will be able to call Los Gatos our forever home. We are back here with my parents and siblings. Our reason to moving here can be summarized in one word: opportunity. That is what we want for our son. We have 4 children, but I'm here for you today because of our youngest. Christopher is a 20-year-old man with both autism and an intellectual disability. Today is the last day of Autism Awareness Month, and I hope I can share with you the value that children like mine bring to our community. I come to you to speak on behalf of the North 40 Phase 2 development, a place my son could one day call home. There is such an incredible need for our young adults to be included in our communities. My son is one of the 30 students who does attend the post-secondary program at West Valley as an extension of the Los Gatos High School. He is working on job schools and just yesterday attended a job fair and hopes to this summer volunteer at the Billy Jones Wildcat Railroad, where he can share his love of trains. I hope that you can all join him and visit him this summer. He is capable of this goal, but he does need help. He is not able to afford the high rental rates in this area. He wants to be close to his family and friends and have access to transportation so he can continue to be a contributing member to this community. Housing is not just a want, it is a need. Most adults with disabilities are never able to have a place to call their own home. It is a worry that parents like me are burdened with every day. What will happen upon my death? I want to set him up for success. Success I know he is capable of, given the opportunity. This housing program would provide that opportunity for families like ours, and I want our adult children to live an independent life in Los Gatos. I ask you today to vote yes on this project so that this community can provide more and be for our inclusive and diverse town. The vision statement of Los Gatos states residents are united in their desire to maintain a high quality of life and preserve the character of the town. This includes all members of the community and housing opportunities that will extend an opportunity to enrich the lives, not just of those with disabilities, but those that they will serve. Come and visit us this summer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the speaker? No, thank you. And then I also have a card for Chris Capriati. So Chris, can you adjust the microphone so you're easily to speak into it? You're a little taller than your mom. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Good evening, members of the Los Gatos Town Council and members of community. My name is Chris Capriati, and I'm currently a post-secondary with the Los Gatos Saratoga Union High School District. And throughout my program, I'm also eligible to take classes at West Valley College. I'm doing 2 years at West Valley, and I plan to do University of California, Davis to study acting and film through the Redwood Seat Scholars Program. Now, this housing project is important to me because it has good apartments that I could maybe move into after I finish college. I'd be close to family, friends, while living independently, working. Being able to do this will make a huge positive impact on my life, personally, as well as the lives of many others like me. Think about it, when you were my age, do you envision living on your own? Or living with your parents forever? What I had in mind was not living with my mom and dad, even though I really don't mind though, but thank you for your time, and I hope you do build these apartments for our community.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. And next up, I do have John. So thank you.
Hi, I'm John Capriati. I'm not going to be as eloquent as my son, or as prepared as my wife. But I'm also in strong support of this. As a realtor, I understand the need for affordable housing, especially the need for housing for individuals with developmental disabilities. Like my wife said, one of the reasons we moved here was for the opportunity. Found out about this project, and it's something that's very exciting. 16 is a good number to start with. Obviously, the whole area, we need a lot more of that. We just want, as parents, we just want to give our kids a chance to become everything they can be, depending on, all the opportunities given to them. Very proud of that young man. He was very nervous coming up here today, but he's a kid that just tackles things head on, and having an opportunity to live on his own in a community with retail on site, possibly have a job there. You walk to work. It's one of the things that makes Los Gatos special. And like I said, we haven't lived here long as we've come back, but we're very excited about this, and I hope you guys support this.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much. The next speaker card I have is for Noah Sklar. Sorry. I'm sorry. It's okay.
Hi, I'm not so prepared, so I'll talk from the heart. The moms before me were amazing. So I'm Noah Sklar. I live on Monera Court for almost 30 years. So my younger daughter is autistic, and it's been a lifelong struggle. It's very difficult. People who don't have kids with disabilities cannot comprehend, but that's okay. So Romy grew up here. The services from the school, especially Los Gatos High School, Los Gatos High School was amazing. And now what's happening? So we invested a lot in her, and to become a productive member of society, tens of thousands of dollars later, she is now graduating with honors, Dean's List, which is a huge accomplishment for a kid like her. It's been a lifelong of being excluded in social issues, and I think now it's an opportunity to have a reparation, like a repairment. These kids, and Mr. Burnett, just to let you know, there's tons of kids on the special needs. Some parents don't want to come forward, talk about it. A lot of kids live with their parents, and they need to be independent. That's part of No Kids Left Behind, of inclusion, and the pathway for independence. So definitely we need units for special needs. 16 to me is a joke. I think should be more, because I remember when we started to talk about North 40, all I could hear, affordable housing, affordable housing, affordable. Where's the affordable housing? All I see is 2.5 million, 1.9 million, 3 million apartments there at North 40, where I'm still waiting for the affordable housing. So where is it? So our kids, I need my daughter to live nearby me. There's no reason for her to go to Santa Clara or Mountain View or Cupertino when she can be near me, and be a productive member of society and work in 2 jobs, because she will never be able, maybe, but I don't think she'll be able to make enough to live here with a regular salary. She's planning to study social work, master's. We hope this will happen, but even if she's not going to be able to afford anything unless she gets affordable housing, and she deserves it. Let's include these kids. Enough with the fancy schmancy expensive units. Now it's time payback. Now it's time to give for our people, for our kids, feel included and live nearby, not some ostracized somewhere far. And that's it.
Thank you. Before you leave, are there any questions for the speaker? No. Thank you so much for sharing tonight. The next speaker card I have is Sarah Grignon.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Grignon, and I'm a director at Hope Services. We are a service provider for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I want to express my support of the North 40 development, particularly for the inclusion of affordable housing and designated units for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Hope Services is a leading provider of services for people with disabilities in Silicon Valley. We serve approximately 3,700 people and their families in 9 Bay Area counties and provide a broad spectrum of services. Some of the services that we do support are, or that we do provide, are some of the services that you were asking about. In addition to the wonderful services that my colleague at Housing Choices talked about, we also layer independent living, skills training, and supported living support for people that are living independently in their own apartments. And this could be anywhere from drop-in to a couple hours a week to 24-hour support, depending on what the individual needs. Many individuals and families that we support do reside on Los Gatos. These families are looking for places in the community where their adult sons or daughters can call home. And natural supports are very imperative for the success of the people that we support. Living in the communities where they are raised help keep those natural supports in place. These are residents who grew up here, attended schools here, and now deserve the opportunity to thrive in our hometown. We are very grateful for Los Gatos' commitment to services and housing for people with IDD. We do not take this commitment for granted. After years of market rate development, it's refreshing to see these meaningful progress towards housing for all income levels, especially individuals with disabilities. In addition, this project will so beautifully respond to our society's commitment for creating a more inclusive and accessible community. The need is urgent. There are so many local families, the ones that you heard here, and so many others that we support who are aging, and they do worry about what will happen to their sons or daughters with disabilities in the future. So I urge the Planning Commission to approve this development and ensure that the IDD designated units and affordable housing components are preserved and prioritized as the project moves forward. Thank you for your commitment to addressing this urgent need for affordable housing and inclusive housing in our community for people with IDD. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? No. Thank you very much for your comments tonight. The next speaker I have is Lee Quintana.
Before my minutes start, I have to ask a question because I was a little bit late in getting here. Speaking tonight does not eliminate the ability to speak again at future meetings.
Because there will be new information. All of the environmental review hasn't been included. There will be enough new information that anyone can make another public comment. So,
okay. I actually expected to hear a lot of people talk against the project because of the height of the buildings. I have to back up. I'm a current member of the Historic Preservation Committee, but I'm speaking as a citizen, not as a member of that committee. Okay. I had just a few comments to make, and basically, I'm in support of the whole project. I know there's a lot of opposition out there to the height of the buildings, but considering the basic facts that this is a SB 330 application, that it's not a builder's remedy, that it's located on a housing element site which requires a minimum of 30 units per acre, and this currently barely meets that requirement. So there are only two ways that I can think of to decrease the height of that building. One is getting rid of the podium parking, putting it elsewhere on site, or reducing the number of units, putting them elsewhere on site. Both need to stay on site. Currently, the only way to do that I can think of is to occupy some of the open space that has been provided, which is one of the really strong points of this project proposal. Neither of those solutions will I think, work or be supported by the community. In addition, I would just like to say that I'm not going to talk about that. I'll reserve my specific design comments to a later meeting. But I've been involved in the North 40 since the first North 40 plan. And I hope that we do not take another 10 or 15 years to get this project through and operable. I think that I would like to compliment the developers in the fact that, as far as I know, they're the only developers in Los Gatos that have dedicated land for affordable housing. They're the only developers in Los Gatos that have dedicated as much open space that is available to the whole community. They have provided bike trails that no other developer has voluntarily done. And I think they should be credited for that, and I support approving this project and in as expeditious a way as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? No. Okay. Thank you. Next, I have Denise Jaraguay. Sorry, I am so sorry.
Good evening. I'm Denise Jauregui, Executive Director of Housing Choices, and I am here to express my strong support for the North 40 project, particularly the inclusion of IDD units. As my colleague Gia mentioned, our mission at Housing Choices is to open doors for people with developmental disabilities by creating and supporting quality, affordable housing, ensuring that they're living rewarding lives in the homes of their choosing. And as my other colleague Sarah mentioned, with supportive services of their choosing as well. So because the clients that we serve have multiple or various disabilities, there isn't one fits all. The lack of access to affordable housing is the #1 reason adults with developmental disabilities are unable to move out of the family home and live independently, and are at greater risk of becoming homeless and not having a place to live. Housing Choices has worked with Eden Housing at numerous properties all throughout Santa Clara County, and we have been fortunate enough to provide stable housing to people with developmental disabilities by providing different services on site in various cities to help keep the clients and the people that we serve within their communities that they've grown up in and are comfortable living in. By forming these long-term partnerships with housing developers who have set aside a percentage of the units to people with developmental disabilities, they are able to continue living in the cities that they grew up in. It is because of these projects that reflect the community where people of all abilities can live. I really hope that you consider moving this project forward. Thank you.
Questions? No. Thank you. Next, I have Shiva Ricey.
Hello, everyone. First, I would like to thank all the families who kindly shared their journey and stories with us. I'm a relatively new resident of the Los Gatos community, and I'm attending today's town hall to listen, hear the facts, arguments before forming an opinion. So what I'm about to state is just my personal opinion so far, not encouragement for approval or rejection of the project. One of the arguments that stood out as the developers were speaking was the promise of commercial prosperity with the North 40 Phase 2. Well, if Phase 1 is any indication, that ground level commercial area has been sitting vacant for over 2 years. In fact, the parking lot area was even unfinished for a very long time. So I'm genuinely curious to see, if there are any safeguards. Is there any safeguard that these promises would actually materialize? The other thing of course, I'm all for affordable housing. They're all valid comments that people made. However, with Phase 1, it ended up having like a 49 senior affordable multifamily apartment complex with 250 plus multi-million-dollar not so affordable units adjacent to that. Now, if 16, as people made, that number, I do not think is gonna cut it for the support that the community with disability is gonna need. So I'm just curious to know if there are any safeguards, like what is there so that we know, okay, the development is made, what is there a guarantee so that it doesn't end up being just a multi-million-dollar project with very minimal, so that it just qualifies for supplying affordable housing. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And we just, if this is your first meeting, we don't answer questions during this, but staff does like take note of them, and we will be discussing more with the developer and everything. So thank you for your comments tonight. Next, I have Pamela Emanuel.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Pamela Emanuel. I'm a retired person. I've been at the Phase 1 since the beginning, since it first opened. I've been in the Santa Clara County area for 20 years now. I raised my kids here. I had an option to come here or live in the area where I was living and continue my job there. I chose to come here because I wanted to make this town my city, make it my home, and bring my children here to raise my children here. Now that I've retired, my children were worried about me, wondering if I would be able to care for myself because it's so expensive. If it weren't for the Phase 1 project, I would not be able to live in this community. So family unity is very important. So for me to be here and continue to be around my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, I feel like it's a blessing and an honor to be able to live in the community that I'm living in below-market housing. Without this, I would not be able to do this. It is a good option for other people. I worked in San Francisco, still do. I retired and I had to go take another job because I couldn't afford it. But San Francisco has massive housing crisis out there. They have a lot of people that are homeless on the streets. This is a beautiful city. I don't want to see that happen here. I would like to see more affordable housing for people so that people can be able to live here and not be on the street, not live in their cars, not live without dignity because they can't afford to live in proper places, just to want to be around their family or move to another state because they can't afford to stay here around their family. So I think affordable housing is amazing. I know since I've been here, this program has helped me tremendously. I feel safe. My grandchildren comes here and they feel safe with me being here. My children feels that way. And I think that if we had more of this to offer the community, it would be better. I listened to some of the mothers here that spoke about their children with disabilities. I also have one with disability and I worry about him too. With affordable housing, we don't have to worry about that. To be able to lay down and go to sleep and feel great and not have to worry is amazing. For my children to be able to call me on the phone and say, you know what, I don't have to worry about you. I know you're safe. I know that you're okay and you can take care of yourself. To be a senior citizen and not be able to care for yourself is frightening. It's really frightening. But to be able to have more affordable housing in this community is great. I don't want to move to another state. I don't want to move to another city. I want to stay here. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Oh, it looks like Vice Chair Birch does have a question for you.
Just a quick one. So to confirm, you live in the Phase 1 Eden housing,
yes.
Correct?
Yes, I do.
And you feel like that has been a very successful program?
Absolutely,
you would be a big
100%.
advocate.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the last speaker card I have is for Karen Yamamoto.
I'm sorry, I'm going to piss off some of you people. Hi, my name is Karen Yamamoto. I've lived here for 25 years. I'm a retired special ed teacher. I have a little bit of a problem with this development for several reasons. I love the fact that it's an EDD has that element. I love the fact it has affordable housing. Love the fact that it's got a lot of things going good for it. The issues that I have is that it is part of the SB 330 build. it will create infrastructure issues. It should be included with the ERI as an accumulative effect with the rest of the SB 330s, like the Los Gatos Green. This should not be looked at individually. It needs to be looked at as a whole. There are 14 SB 330s that are going to play havoc with the infrastructure and be very, very extremely costly for our town. With that said, I'm also wondering, how will developers guarantee that they will fix the sewer and the water issues and not just tap into them, like in phase 1 of the North 40, which caused sewer backage up into our houses off of Benedict Lane, which is right down the street. I also have low water pressure at my house because of phase 1. These are issues that have to be addressed with our old infrastructure. And I don't know who pays for it. I'm hoping it is not our town. I'm also concerned that we're putting a facility for the EDD community on a flood zone and an earthquake zone. How is that part got past CEQA? Thank you. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Ms. Yamamoto? Okay, no, thank you. Okay, I do not have any more speaker cards, so we're good in the audience. Okay, are there any speakers on Zoom?
Yes, thank you, Chair. First speaker will be Allie.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Allie Saperman, and I'm here on behalf of the Housing Action Coalition, a nonprofit that supports housing at all income levels, to express our strong support for the North 40 Phase 2 project. This proposal brings a rare opportunity to transform 15 underutilized acres into a vibrant mixed community with 450 new homes, including a significant 17% affordable housing component. It also goes further than the town's requirements by dedicating land to Eden Housing for a 100% affordable building, ensuring that families earning 60% of AMI and below have access to safe, high-quality housing in Los Gatos. This is also a housing element site in which the town has already designated the site as a way to meet its RENA's goals of 1,900 homes. The project is thoughtfully designed around the meadow, a 3.5-acre public gathering space that connects homes, retail, and open space. Despite not being a transit-rich area, the development team has prioritized bike and pedestrian connections, a balanced parking plan, and transportation demand strategies to reduce car dependency responsibly. We're also encouraged by the project's environmental leadership with all-electric units, solar energy, and a target of Greenpoint rated silver certification. And importantly, this proposal reflects years of community engagement with real input shaping the design as well as redesign to meet the housing element targets. From retail spaces that support local businesses to infrastructure upgrades, the project offers broad public benefit. We urge you to support North 40 Phase 2 as a thoughtful, balanced approach meeting Los Gatos' housing needs and building a more inclusive, connected community. Please move this project forward without any delay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Allie? No. Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Are there any other additional speakers on Zoom?
Yes, Chair. Next speaker will be Jennifer.
Good evening, council members. My name is Jennifer Lucas, and I am the manager of the Central Coast Office of the California State Council on Developmental Disabilities. The State Council is an independent state agency established in both state and federal law and is responsible for driving systemic change that advances self-determination, inclusion, and independence for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I just want to express our strong support for the North 40 Phase 2 development, in particular the inclusion of affordable housing and the designated units for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Access to affordable housing in the community is critical for people with developmental disabilities because it does remove barriers that often prevent them from living safely, independently, and with dignity in their own communities. Individuals with developmental disabilities have the legal right to live in community-based settings rather than institutions. Ensuring access to affordable housing helps to uphold the civil rights protections guaranteed under the California's Lanterman Act, which, by the way, is an amazing and unique civil rights law for our state. No other state has the Lanterman Act or anything like that, as well as the Americans with Disabilities Act. People with developmental disabilities are especially impacted by the shortage of affordable housing that meets their needs because the vast majority of people with disabilities live with their parents and aging caregivers. As you already heard from the parents who shared their stories earlier, many families are grappling with the difficult decision of what will happen to their adult children with disabilities when they're no longer able to provide care. And those adult children, like Chris, who spoke earlier, are wanting to have the opportunity, as we all do, to live in our own place. And having low-income units also provides the direct care staff who support people with developmental disabilities and often have a great deal of difficulty affording to live in the area due to low wages. It provides them the opportunity to remain here as well. This development not only provides many low-income units, but also 16 units specifically for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And by doing so, it signals a meaningful shift toward a future where everyone, regardless of ability or income, has a place in Los Gatos, including those who provide supports to folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. With on-site support from Housing Choices, which is a vendor at San Andreas Regional Center, as you already heard. By the way, if you're not familiar with the regional center system, they cannot purchase housing. So affordability is really critical because they do help to support the people in their own homes and provide the staffing. This development will provide people with intellectual development.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, but your 3 minutes is up, but does anyone have a question?
Thank you.
I do have a question for you, and that would be, do you feel that the application and the partnership with Eden meets what you believe to be like the needs of the community in an effective way, or is there anything else that you feel like needs to?
No, I think their partnership is fantastic. It's been successful in other towns as well, and so I absolutely support that.
Okay, thank you. I do have one more speaker card. Are there any more speakers on Zoom?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. I have one more speaker card, and it is for Lee Fago.
Good evening, Lee Fago, a 30-year resident of Los Gatos on Lilac Way, and I'm speaking here as an individual in the community. I'm not representing any group. I am encouraged to hear the proposals that are before you for this development, and this is in phase 2, I think, with the more affordable housing units and the assisted living type of facilities, I think will be very, very important, and I'm encouraged by that. The concern I do have, though, is the fact that we don't yet have the environmental impact report yet for this development, and we also need to be looking at it under the CEQA guidance, which is the California Environmental Quality Act, Requirement Act, which summarizes the impact of not just this development, but those along and near this same development. And we do have quite a few, more than 1,000 housing units that are going to be along the boulevard if they all get built, and they're proposing to do so, many under SB 330. And that has to be considered by the town, and the impact that that's going to have on this development and the housing that is going to have water issues, sewage issues, other utility service requirements that have to be remedied. And this should be done in advance of the building or as part of the development. And the other thing is the impact not just on these new housing units, but also on the existing residents in that neighborhood. As you heard from an earlier speaker, at her house has been impacted already by some of the developments that have occurred in the phase one of the North 40. So let's put all of this together and not just look at an isolated development, but what the impact of this additional development is in series with the other developments in the surrounding area, so that we have a safe environment, a healthy environment, and one that is appealing to the current residents and new residents to move into town. And we are open for new residents to move in, but let's do it in a way that is reasonably priced, safe, and will encourage more people to reside in our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? No. And as has been mentioned a few times, the environmental analysis is still pending. And so when that is done, that's when we'll have a future meeting on this agenda item. So I have no more speaker cards. Is there someone on Zoom now?
Yes, there's a hand. Rich Stevens.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. My name's Rich Stevens. I live in Los Gatos. Actually, I was born here 60 years ago. I live on Benedict Lane. I love to hear that this is not using builder's remedy. That's great. Thank you so much for pursuing it in that manner. I support the project, but would like to add that I don't like the 5 to 7 story buildings at all. Worse, I'm terrified of the safety infrastructure and height of them. That said, at least they are similar to the other North 40 characteristics and to buildings in that area like the hospital, cancer center, Stanford, and the senior center home in that area. So I'm thankful that they are farther north and they fit a little bit into that area, much more so than they would if they were further south. I do strongly share Karen's and Lee's concerns. I do believe, and I think it was just mentioned, I do believe that we need to do a full, complete EIR and considering CEQA before any of these projects are approved. Again, I do support this project. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a good location, but I am concerned. Traffic already on Los Gatos Boulevard towards Good Samaritan is absolutely horrible. So I would look at what that's going to do in that area. How are ambulances going to get to Good Samaritan? What's going to happen with the water, the flooding? I believe there's an area of that project, North 40 area, that is floods already with rain. So what's going to be done about those types of things? Anyway, that's all I have to say. I would just consider the full safety and full EIR of all the units in Los Gatos. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? No. Any other hands raised on Zoom?
No other hands, Chair.
Okay. So I think that we need to take a bathroom break, perhaps. If that's okay. I know that it's a little bit awkward timing, but what we will be doing is we will take a 3-minute break, and then after that 3 minutes, the applicant will come back up and have 3 minutes to address the commission. We will follow up with questions and then discussion. So we will be back in 3 minutes. Thank you. We are back from our break. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience in person and on Zoom. So the next part, we will have the applicant come up to make a closing statement. So you will have 3 minutes to speak, and then commissioners will, I'm sure, have additional questions for you.
I'm going to be really short. I just want to thank you for the hard work on the housing element previously, and it's paved the way for this project and Eden's building, which has been discussed so positively tonight. So thank you. All of our consultants are here to answer any questions you have. I just wanted to reassure everyone, and I said this during the presentation, this project's individual and cumulative impacts are within the scope of the 2040 General Plan EIR, which the town relied upon when they passed the housing element. So I just wanted to remind everybody. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Birch. You can start off with the questions.
Yeah, you don't get to run away just yet. Come on back. So I think there's probably going to be some follow-up questions, so I'm kind of queuing this up for fellow commissioners. But obviously the way that the affordable housing of this is being structured is a little unique. So I would like for you to tell me actually a little bit about your partnership with Eden. And have you done something similar, aside from the, previously the North 40? Have you done other partnerships with them? Is this a long-standing type of relationship that you have? So that we sort of understand that the potential risk of the affordable housing units happening on their part is a low risk. I would like to understand that a little better.
Sure. With regard to Grosvenor, our relationship with Eden is limited to the North 40, so phase 1 and phase 2. We've had a incredible relationship with Eden. Phase 1 was extremely successful, as you've heard. I would certainly say, and I think this addresses some of your question, that there's no one that will work harder to deliver that building than Eden. And they just need to secure their state and federal funding to do so. We will deliver the site to them, donate the site to them. And we can work with staff to ensure that there are safeguards in place to make sure that the affordable housing is built within a reasonable time frame.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Stump.
Let me build on that because Commissioner Birch, while you used low risk, I would like to replace that with no risk. We cannot afford, no pun intended, we cannot afford to not have these 67 affordable housing units. And so that's why we're trying to understand the relationship, because if there's no guarantee, then, by the way, I would view this as we basically have two different projects. We have North 40 Part A, and we have North 40 Part B that's going to develop 67 affordable housing units, because we cannot take this risk that something does happen. And so again, that's why I've got to replace low risk with no risk. And you may not have an answer right off the top, and I realize I think you're willing to make assurances, but we have got, you heard it tonight, awesome. I love the community that came out and demonstrated their support and their need. And what was also, I think, very important for the town to hear and the commissioners to hear, we have significant needs in Los Gatos. So this isn't that we're building low-income housing for people that are going to, just all come from outside the community. It's needed here in the community. And so we have literally got to ensure, because we want those folks that presented tonight to see this come to fruition, not just the hope of it. And again, I don't mean to be condescending at all when I make that statement, because I realize your best intentions are for this to happen. But from our perspective, my perspective, I have to state for myself, it's got to be no risk. Thank you. Well, my question is, sorry, I just got reminded, don't you have a question? I do. My question would be, so what can be put in place to make this no risk?
Well, the fastest way to get these homes built is to get this project approved. first of all.
I get that.
Second of all, as I said before, this project is incredibly important, as you heard. We agree. We will work with staff to make sure that that building is completed within a reasonable time frame.
And you use the term reasonable time frame, and I realize that's difficult because, you know, developing the North 40 over how many years has that been a reasonable time frame? So what would your definition of a reasonable time frame be?
You know, it's probably a better answer for Eden, or from Eden.
Okay.
And they can come up here and answer that. I would just say they are the experts in getting the federal and state funding to build these buildings. So it's really probably best for them to answer.
That would be great. And while you're making your way up to answer that question, let me just pop one more on you. When it relates to getting federal funding, when does your process begin? I guess it's got to be at project approval, but you will tell me the answer. At what point in time do you seek federal funding for a project or funding for a project like this?
I've already started. I've already started with the funding applications, of the total project development cost, let me pull that number up so I don't misquote here. Part of the thing that should be spoken to, and we certainly speak to this in all of our applications for funding, is that that land has a value. It has a significant value. And that land, even though it's coming from not a governmental agency, it counts as funding support for the project because it was donated at less than what the market value is. So 1.34 acres, I mean, that's expensive here. Let's just, for the argument's sake, say the first 12 million is raised with their donation. The next piece that is extremely expensive is the streets and the roads and the land improvement, the horizontal improvement, not the vertical. The horizontal improvement has virtually limited sources of funds that I can go out and ask federal, state, local dollars, even county dollars, very, very limited funds. So with the master developer prepping that land for us, giving us what's called a blue top ready pad, it takes out millions of dollars of cost in our affordable housing community. So there's, if I were to do that, and we built another building in San Jose, about the same density, close to $1 million in a door, close to $1 million per unit. We paid our own land cost, we paid our own infrastructure improvements, our own demolition. And if it had not been for the county of Santa Clara or the city of San Jose, that project would still be likely waiting to go because it was a $120 million project. This project doesn't have those two huge tranches. So we're left now with the gap to fund, if you will. So out of I believe we have, no, let me look at the numbers, because I can make some stuff up really good. The total development cost without land or without infrastructure right now in its current day at the interest rates where we have is about $45.5 million. So the savings of, we'll just round it up to 15 million, maybe 16 million, is 16 million we don't have to go out and raise from local, county, state, or federal sources. So how quickly can we get the rest of it? The tax credits will equate to about $24 million in equity in today's prices. That wasn't close to what we received in equity on phase one. A lot of stuff happened at the federal level, at the banking level, that significantly impacted the amount of money that we can sell a tax credit for. But Eden Housing, in his 57 years, garners the highest amount on a per tax credit basis than any of the other for-profit and nonprofit developers in this same space. And so our projects now in different areas of the state are getting about 10 cents on the dollar more than our colleagues in the business. And that's phenomenal. And so our track record of coming up and doing these projects in partnership with companies like Grosvenor, with partnership with companies like Aga Development or Sunset Development, or even SCS Homes in Santa Clara, where land was donated to us, infrastructure was put in for us. And since 2016, we have 7 of those complete. I'm not even counting phase 1 because the money was also donated as part of that development. So we have many, many, many different types of partnerships and vast experience in getting the money. And I think they picked a great partner in us. We have a good track record. Sorry, I was very winded.
Okay.
Questions?
Commissioner Stump has a follow-up.
With phase 1, maybe you can give us an idea, because to me it kind of looks like the structure got built under you, right? Because there was a structure that was going up and you occupy a floor. So were you given a rough framed weather-tight shell to develop inside of, or what did that development project look like? And what was the time lag for the completion of that development versus other things that were going on around you? And I realize that can be a tough question because the project was phased.
Yeah, well, that building could not be built independently of all of the components that were in it. I mean, there is a retail space, there's a public parking garage, and there is a residential above. And so we eloquently, with the help of attorneys way smarter than me, and I'm not that attorney kind of person, thank you, Eric, figured out how to do an execution that allowed for Summerhill to start construction on a very complicated transaction that we're not proposing here. We don't have the current finance environment that would do what we call a step into the shoes execution, where they went, as soon as they got their approvals from town council, they started the horizontal improvements and went vertical. And then at some point we said, whoa, stop. We're going to go get the tax credits now. You're going to still pay for this stuff that we can't raise the dollars for. And that was the agreement we made at the time. That's not an agreement that works in this environment by any means. So our timing to deliver that building was actually quite elegant. And we came out of ground and started that construction and came into the execution a couple of years ahead of schedule because we just got lucky. We're scrappy at the state level, right? And so that is part of the beauty of finding the right lender, the right investor. And that is exactly what we'll bring to this development as well.
Commissioner Barnett.
Thank you very much. So one question I have is, having listened to the dire need for housing for the disabled, where does the 16 come from again? It's a projected
It is projected. Mm-hmm. We wanted to make sure that we could have the most flexible funding mechanisms for the project that we could. In other words, we know we have to split the needle at the state, at the local, at the federal level. So the way you do that when you're planning for financing affordable housing is that you really provide the most opportunity for the most little buckets of money that you know you can chase after. And so one of the thoughts here, I believe that our gap, and certainly I'll take a donation check from the town, but I'm not going to do that ask right here. You know,
I thought you were asking me.
I know. I couldn't with a straight face. Where was I going with this?
So the question is, in light of the crying need for that form of housing, is there a way that you could increase your projection?
It wouldn't be advantageous to the project because at the most competitive level to deliver what's called a large family project, which is 2 and 3 bedroom units, to get the tax credits that I need and the tax exempt bonds from the state. I need that building set aside, if you will, to fall into the large family category. And so if we, Eden, were to put more units, it would get out of that category, which allows me to take advantage of the fact that Los Gatos sits in what's called a highest resource area. And from the state standpoint, that's the highest the highest, it gets you the most points bang for your buck when you're doing the competition for the tax credits and the bonds at the state level. That's about the easiest way I can explain a little bit of crazy mathematical fun that we have.
I understand. Thanks. I think I got that.
Okay.
Commissioner Stump.
Can I assume that Eden House is basically a soup to nuts provider? And what do I mean by that is you get funding, and then basically the project's entirely on you. So you've got a construction management team. How full are your services for development?
We're pretty full and deep. We've got a bench of 35 developers in our department. So we've got the development team. Development, we do not build our own projects. So we do hire a general contractor. We work with all of the bigger general contractors in the area. We're kind of repeat offenders to them. You build that relationship and you keep going back to someone who delivers on time, on budget, and delivers you a quality project. That's what we'll look for. And in terms of property management, we do have our own property management arm as well as resident services, which don't take the place of services that, say, an IDD service provider would do, but we also augment services to our residents who may or may not need it. Like, for example, in some of our projects, what our residents need most is technology centers. And so we staff those technology centers with college students who come and volunteer their time, and then we build the space for it, we provide the equipment, or maybe someone's just trying to find a little extra food. So we work with great organizations who are already in the community to provide them the space to get those services directly to the residents who need them.
Thank you.
We also asset manage too, so we won't sell either.
Okay, additional questions for the applicant. Commissioner Stump.
I've got a question I think that would probably go to Eric, since I'm going to refer to your March 6th letter once again. And I'm sorry, I've got a quote so you've got the context from it, and it's not a long passage, but stick with me here. The California Department of Housing and Community Development found that the town's January 30th, 2023 housing element did not substantially comply with the requirements of the state housing element law. The town made numerous revisions to its housing element in response to HCD's findings before adopting a substantially compliant housing element that HCD certified on July 10, 2024. However, because the project has a vested right, and a project, speaking of yours, correct, has a vested right to proceed under the ordinances, policies, and standards in place at the time the applicant submitted the preliminary application on January 30th, 2023, that housing element applies. So I guess my question, sorry for that lengthy reading of your letter, why do you believe this HCD project or this project vests with January 30th? I'm sorry, I said HCD in there. I did not mean that. Why do you believe your project vests with the January 30th housing element that was submitted to HCD?
Yeah, no, thanks. I follow the question. So the town did adopt, and the housing element took effect. The town adopted a housing element on January 30th and submitted it to HCD. So that housing element was in effect at the time. It was adopted. The town made findings to comply with CEQA. It adopted a resolution. It took effect. HCD required the town to continue working on the housing element. It made other changes that weren't related to this project site. in the rest of the housing element. So the housing element continued to evolve and was re-adopted multiple times before the final HCD certification was required. But HCD certification isn't a prerequisite for the housing element taking effect. The town took all the legal steps it needed to for the housing element to take effect. The meaning of HCD not certifying the housing element right away means that in the time period between the town's first adoption of the housing element and the ultimate housing element that was adopted and later certified, that the town could have been subject to builder's remedy applications, which other applicants have invoked. But during the window where the town had adopted its first housing element, and we're even waiting to see what HCD was going to do in response to that housing element, we submitted a preliminary application. So a provision of the Housing Crisis Act provides that as of the date of that preliminary application, the rules and standards that were in effect as of that date are what then control for the rest of the project. And as of the date that we submitted, it was the town's original January 30th, 2023 housing element that was in effect.
That raises another question, and that would be on April 14th of that same year. HCD sent the town a letter that said the town neither complies nor obviously is that housing element certified.
That's correct.
So with that, and of course that's what you state in your letter. I mean, you state it very clearly. So I guess and by the way, I'm not an attorney, so I won't try and keep up with you here. So at some point I have to say thank you very much. But that just does not seem to be logical that you can tag to a housing element that we're being told by the state it does not comply nor is certified. And so that's why I'm asking the question. I'm trying to understand,
I understand
what you're linking to here.
And I'll see if I can add a little bit more context to it. So when HCD certifies a housing element, they review the housing element and compare how that housing element satisfies the various statutory requirements, and they will then certify whether or not, in their opinion, it has checked all the boxes that are necessary to have fulfilled the statutory duty to adopt that housing element. And that creates a presumption that the housing element is adequate. At the time when the housing element was first adopted, the inverse wasn't true. There was no presumption of inadequacy. So although HCD certifying the housing element would tell everyone that, yes, we're presumed, unless HCD made a terrible mistake, we're presumed that you've complied. The fact that they didn't find it compliant didn't automatically create a presumption at that time that the housing element wasn't compliant. And regardless of whether the housing element satisfied all of the statutory criteria, which are necessary to apply for certain grants, to be designated as a pro-housing jurisdiction, to be necessary to make sure that you're not subject to the builder's remedy, it doesn't actually affect whether or not the housing element was adopted and in effect. So you can adopt a housing element that maybe, I think one of the issues in the town's housing element that was originally adopted was that HCD felt that the town hadn't analyzed its obligations to affirmatively further fair housing deeply enough. And so there were lots of changes in that section of the housing element. But while that work was going on, the town had an adopted housing element in effect. It is true that the state didn't agree that the analysis in that element met all of the statutory criteria, but that doesn't change the fact that the housing element was still adopted and in effect and controlling the land use designations on the sites that had been included in that housing element.
Thank you.
And I guess one other thought, I can see that you're still wrestling with some of that or not fully satisfied. To the extent you were to look at it and say that if there were no housing element at that place, then the project is in fact covered by the builder's remedy. We haven't felt that we need to invoke the builder's remedy because of the consistency with the town adopted land use designations and densities. But if it were true that the housing element were not properly adopted or in effect at that time, honestly, the end result would be the same, because the project is either consistent with the housing element and able to proceed as a housing element project, or if there were no housing element, there still is not a legal basis to deny that project.
Thank you for your patient answer.
Commissioner Barnett.
I think this is more generally for the applicant. So a couple of members of the community have expressed concern about the adequacy of the infrastructure outside of the boundaries of the new project. I was wondering if you could address those concerns.
I will turn it over to our civil engineer.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacqueline Bays. I'm with McCain Somps. I was a civil engineer on phase 1 as well, and now on phase 2. So the site, I'll start with sewer, is served by a sewer main that is under Highway 17. That's an existing main. It serves phase 2 and only phase 1. So that sewer system is just collecting the flows from phase 1 and phase 2. Water will connect on Los Gatos Boulevard and to the phase 1 water site, or water connections at 3 different locations. San Jose Water Company does that design. And then storm drain, the site itself will collect stormwater, its own stormwater, and some stormwater from Los Gatos Boulevard. That stormwater will go to a hydromodification vault that's under 5th Street in the back of the site, and then to a storm drain line that's under Highway 17 as well.
I may have a follow-up. I think the concern that was expressed is the age of the public infrastructure right now. I think the sewer was mentioned, and I guess the question is, have you evaluated the ability of the existing infrastructure to handle the demands of the new project?
Yeah, so the infrastructure was studied during the EIR process and the specific plan process, so that it accounted for that flow going into the existing sewer line in the back. I'm not familiar with that street that the person who commented was speaking of, but again, the site, the sewer line just collects from our site, so that sewer main, that infrastructure that's under Highway 17 is only collecting our site, so that wouldn't impact any other part of the town.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I have a question just about planning to fill the retail space. And so obviously we know that the retail landscape has been changing a lot over the past probably like 30 years. But so as a developer, like how did you approach really planning for the retail space, and what are the plans for, trying to get those spaces leased out? Or, I mean, just any information about the approach to it, just so we can better understand, would be helpful. Thank you.
It's a great question. Retail is a tricky product type. I think one of the main things we focused on is putting all the retail together on the promenade. If you spread out retail or you don't have easy access, you put it in the back of the site, it will fail. So I think putting it along the public promenade, making sure they're neighborhood serving with food uses, and flexible spaces where you can get a variety of different size tenants, so you can move walls around. I mean, all those things make retail successful. And I think keeping it close to the phase 1 retail, which will eventually be built, will also help make it successful.
Okay, thank you. And then what part of the phase 2 would the retail be built and possibly leased out, like with the whole?
So a large portion of that retail is on the ground floor of the multifamily building, so that would be built at the same time and marketed to retail users. there's a freestanding retail building directly across, and that would likely be built at the same time as the multifamily building.
Thank you. And no, you can, Commissioner Barnett.
I know this would ultimately be an issue that would be addressed in the conditions of approval, but could you speak briefly about how you'll address noise, traffic during construction, site safety, et cetera? I'm getting way ahead of ourselves, but
yeah, no,
some comment would be appreciated.
Love to answer that. It's a forward-looking question like that. That would be a great problem to have. So a couple of components to it. One, the project application materials were supplemented with a noise study, an air quality study, transportation study. All of those looked at both operations and construction period to analyze potential impacts, compare it to what previous EIRs had looked at, and make sure that there wouldn't be any air quality impacts, noise impacts to sensitive receptors around the site. So all of those studies were prepared, they've been peer reviewed, and show that construction can occur without triggering impacts at those sensitive receptors. And then to help make sure that some of the assumptions that were baked into those reports happen, the project, as you pointed out, will be conditioned to comply with the town noise ordinance around hours of construction, around construction routes and how trucks come and go to the site. There will be construction around, or conditions around the way that the site is maintains dust control and make sure that there isn't impacts from that. So there will be all of the standard construction controls that are baked in, and then, as I mentioned, the specifics about how this project would be constructed were analyzed separately.
The reference to the prior studies is well appreciated, and I think the answer is fully responsive.
Great.
Commissioner Stump.
Yeah, sorry to torch you with one more question. I come back to January 30th and substantially comply with the housing element law.
Mm-hmm.
If indeed you were in agreement that we were substantially complying with housing element law, then why would builder's remedy have ever been invoked on the town of Los Gatos? And I realize this might seem like a funny question, an awkward question to be directing that to you. And so if I'm putting you in an awkward position, don't feel like you have to answer my question.
Yeah, no, I will probably not directly answer your question, as you suspected, but our view was that the town, regardless of all of the other details that are included with the housing element, the town expressed a very clear policy direction for creating housing at this site at a particular density level. So the use and the density was a very clear expression from the town in that housing element. And we wanted to work with the town to basically respect that policy direction that the town had created through our application. And in so doing, it let us maybe dodge the harder question about whether or not HCD's determination was correct, whether we had to try and make other more novel legal arguments about how to process the project. We can let other projects that you weren't thinking about handle that, and we can come in and deliver a project that is consistent with the planning framework that the town adopted. We thought that was a better approach.
Thank you.
Okay, I have another question for the developer. So, I just have a question about landscaping, which I know is very specific, but within my wheelhouse. And so, is anyone available to answer any of those questions, or perhaps? Okay, great. I'm seeing some nods. I just first want to say that I really do appreciate a lot of the choices for landscaping. There's a lot of native plants and a lot of, appropriate not natives that are also drought tolerant. But I did notice that some magnolia trees, and I know that some of those have had some issues when they get pretty established in the area with regards to like roots and just not as drought tolerant. So I was just wondering justification for that, and or if you would be willing to maybe swap them out for some of the other trees that are native.
Yeah, so I'm Helen Schneider. I'm an architect and associate principal at Perkins & Will. We have been in charge of the master plan as well as the landscape design. I am not a landscape architect, so I will not be able to propose an alternate. However, I think we are up for other proposed solutions if that particular tree has had issues in Los Gatos.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And I mean, can I just get a nod if that's maybe something that we can next time, when we have our next meeting, we can perhaps see if that's a possibility. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for the applicant right now? Okay, I think people do have some questions for staff, but should we, would you possibly have a follow-up for the applicant? No. Okay, so the last call for applicant questions. We're good? Okay, we will now close the public portion of the public hearing on item number 1, and I invite commissioners to ask questions of staff, provide comments, and eventually we will need to propose a motion to move this to a date certain. No? Uncertain. Sorry, uncertain. Sorry.
For Mr. Paulson, we've dealt with this issue recently, but I wonder if you could comment on or respond to the speakers from the public who mentioned concerns about the cumulative impacts of the developments which are accelerating through the town.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, as many or all of you may recall, well, actually, 2 of you weren't participating last week. The Genuine Automotive site, this question came up. It's come at previous hearings. Ms. Whalen explained that we've been having conversations with environmental consultants about some potential cumulative impact analysis. That at that time she envisioned maybe in about a month, 4 weeks, I think she said. Hopefully, kind of honing in closer on a potential path. So that was made part of the direction to council for that item. And so again, we continue to look at it. I know the environmental consultant, when we spoke, I think it's important for the public for sure, and Planning Commission as well. I think a lot of the discussions that revolve around traffic, frankly, are not going to be addressed in the cumulative impact from a CEQA perspective, because as our environmental consultant mentioned last week, CEQA now currently uses VMT. The congestion, intersection impacts, the typical, what you experience when you're, frustrated sitting on Los Gatos Boulevard or Main Street or any other portion of town, is addressed through a traffic impact analysis and a level of service analysis. The town still does those analysis, but they will not be a component of impacting a determination of significance from a CEQA specific perspective.
Yeah, Vice Chair Birch.
So then as a follow-up to that, Mr. Paulson, is there an intent for the town to do a cumulative traffic impact study that might partner with the cumulative environmental report?
Yeah, so that probably would be part of that discussion as we continue to refine what Ms. Whalen lands on as far as what study she wants to do. So it could be a 2 different components. It could be specifically the CEQA analysis from a cumulative perspective, but also a transportation impact analysis from a cumulative perspective as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. I would appreciate having that too. I think that's going to be a big topic of conversation as we move forward with these applications.
I have a follow-up question for that too. Would that type of analysis, obviously, it would not be something that developers would be required to mitigate because it's not part of CEQA?
At this time, I can't provide information on that.
Perfect. And then, but either way, whether whether developers or certain projects would be responsible or not, it would still be beneficial. It would still help the town with future planning for infrastructure for trying to, extend VTA access, or it would provide us with data about where we have the most congestion and how to eventually mitigate that with regards to like our planning over time. Perhaps, you don't know. It's okay.
Generally, yes.
Okay.
I would say we're
Okay.
talking again about two separate but parallel potentially paths.
Yes.
From a CEQA perspective,
Yeah.
you know, we'll have to look at that analysis.
Uh-huh.
From a traffic impact analysis, we would be working closely with our consultants as well as our Parks and Public Works team to figure out what that scope looks like and then what that analysis looks like. But again, that won't necessarily feed directly into the CEQA analysis because it will strictly be looking at VMT.
Okay. Thank you. And Commissioner Stump.
Another quick follow-up. Obviously, we've not seen any of the CEQA work that's been done because it's not completed yet for this project. So my question would be, is it cumulative in nature, does it really take cumulative impact into account, or is it just really project-specific CEQA?
I don't recall the language that we have seen thus far. They generally have at least some discussion of cumulative impact. I think you've heard testimony this evening as far as what other environmental documents have been relied on, with this being specifically a housing element site. But since that hasn't been locked up and released publicly, or determination quite yet made to which direction we're going, I'm not comfortable answering that.
And again, you know, I'm the guy that keeps coming back and saying that this type of study is needed, and that as we take a look at the 2020, 2040 general plan EIRs, they just do not study reasonably foreseeable development. And we're going through unprecedented times with all of these builders remedy projects, and not trying to pick on any single project, but I think we owe it to our community to make sure we fully understand the impacts to the community, the people that are here, and ultimately the people that we're going to welcome into this community, because they don't want to walk into a community that is, you know, gridlock, traffic congestion, whatever the issue might be, because we didn't study it. So I just really feel we've got a strong obligation to do that. So thanks for letting me make that very long comment, Mr. Paulson.
More question? Are there any other questions for staff? Or is there any discussion or comments that we want to make about anything?
I assume since this is kind of part one,
yes,
we're going to be armed with more information and probably have a significantly more robust, more in-depth conversation. The next one based on the information we'll be given.
Yes. Commissioner Stump.
I'm going to do it. I did ask the applicant about this minimum density issue and the fact that our housing element called for 464 housing units at this site, and what we're ending up with is 450. I'm certainly encouraged by what's going on with this project, but why not go to that 464 if that truly is the 30 dwelling units per acre, if that's truly the density. We need more affordable housing. This project is yielding 77 units. Wouldn't it be great if it could yield a few more? We hear the need, and yet what was supposed to be coming from this property was 364 based on our housing element, and we're going to get 77. I would just say that there's got to be somewhere in the middle that we would say that's reasonable, that's rational. So anyway, I just want to keep pushing that issue because I think it's critical. I think the state of California's got an agenda. We're in a housing crisis. We need more housing, and we need more affordable housing. And are we getting more affordable housing? That's my big concern. So thank you for that.
Commissioner Barnett.
I would like to make a motion with respect to item 1 on the agenda tonight concerning the addresses which were previously read to the chair, that we continue this hearing to a date uncertain, expecting that the CEQA analysis will be available in advance, and with the request, of course, that the applicant take into consideration the various comments that have been made tonight by the planning commissioners and the public. Thank you.
Is there a second? Vice Chair Birch.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, and any discussion? Okay, great. I now call the question and ask for a show of hands in favor of the motion. And it passes unanimously to nothing, obviously. And there aren't any appeal rights, I'm assuming, because this is a recommendation or a continuance.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to thank staff and my fellow commissioners and all of the public that came, and the applicant, your entire team, for coming and being willing to answer all of our questions tonight. And I look forward to our next meeting when we have some more details about environmental review. So being there no further business of the commission, this meeting is adjourned.